Verse 2, you know what I'm saying?
I stand on a mountain of no's. I stand here before you, content with who I am, excited about where I'm going, in loving memory of where I've gone, and very resolute in where I am right now. And yet I stand on a mountain of no's. This is not a quote or phrase that I invented. I heard someone else, a very famous chef, who is also a singer. And at the BET Awards, she said, I stand on a mountain of no's. And it reminded me of how much I have coaxed people away from accepting no, coached people away from saying, well, something must be wrong with them if they're saying no to me. And by no, I mean those who would oppose me would stand in my way. So that presupposes that the direction that I'm going is both righteous and reflective, that it is considerate of those around me, that I'm not stepping on others in order to get where I am going. And therefore, if you are saying no to me and you are opposed to me, I cannot assume that something is wrong with you. I can assume that there is a gap in communication and I have not been able to reach you. My responsibility. I want to talk a little bit about how I arrived at this attitude. And then I want to give you an example that is totally unrelated. But I want you to see how applicable this attitude is. I have faced resistance, no, on a daily basis, for reasons that I decided were arbitrary, that had nothing to do with me, but had everything to do with me. So not me per se, not Dieprie as a person, but someone else's image of me. The common examples I give are the teasing and taunting in school. Oh, you're a fag, you're a sissy, you got sugar in your pants, like this, and this way, and all the different things that people say. That's resistance, and that always felt arbitrary to me. As arbitrary as meeting someone. Hi, I'm Dieprie, looking in their eyes, and they're like, oh, this person is like that. Just when you can see that someone figures out. And you can see how they toss and turn through their words to try and figure out, generally, how is it that they're going to deal with you? Because you are not only different from what they are, I'm talking about the people who see themselves as normal and therefore see you as different. Those people who oppose you for just being who you are, watching them figure this out has often given me enough time to say, okay, it's not as if they're malicious and maliciously saying no to me. They just don't know where to put me. They don't know how to deal with me. And to see how people deal with uncertainty is then very telling. But also to see how you deal with other people's uncertainty. Do you exploit people? Do you sympathize with people? Even if their uncertainty is centered around how they deal with you. Do you tease them back, taunt them? Do you take the position of control and put them on the defensive? You can do all of those. And the bitterness around being excluded or treated differently and noticing that you're treated differently can breed a great deal of cynicism. In the gay world, we call it bitchiness and cloak it under this, just being bitchy, generally bitchy. I mean, bitchy as a disposition, as a way to be. Girl, I told him, and all this mocking of Shaniqua. You see, I'm stumbling for words because it very much it goes to the core of my spine. It sends chills to see people don it so regularly. This attitude that they're almost opposed to everything. They have a judgment, something to say, something nasty to say about everything. And that's how they get people on their team, is by challenging people not to oppose them. I don't want to be that hard-shelled, hard-posed person. I think the hip-hop thug is a straight version of that same thing. I'm not going to feel. That is the Shaniqua, the Shanae. But those of you, to give Shanae as an example, whoever watched Martin, you know that actually Shanae was defensive. And the best defense is an offense, according to sports. But we also saw that she felt. And what I'm saying to you is, and I know this has taken some large turns, but I want you to see all of what I'm saying here through these examples, is that those who oppose you, like that rough Shanae character, like that hard, core thug, or that, that snap queen who takes, no mess, that's an act of defense from a world that seems arbitrarily harsh towards them. And for me, the same thing goes along racial lines. I mean, I'm a person who looks like me, and I live in a place for, it feels like a million of miles. There are millions of people, actually billions, who look very different from me. And this interest, this curiosity, seems to lead all people to abandon all social decorum, to abandon anything that they would know to be right, because there is something other than a human being. So I look at them and I say, okay, this person, and it goes beyond that. When I say that there's something other, it's also compounded with instances when I've seen different people treated differently, and different treatment is something that is the name of the game here in India. Like, everybody's just treated differently for one reason or another. And so, and having to always negotiate no's, because you hear a lot of no's here, become very observant. And to convince people to not oppose me, to say yes, I've had to sort of figure out where they're coming from to help them through their anxieties. So when I relay just dealing with people dealing with an effeminate man and how they struggle with dealing with you, it's also a similar kind of struggle with uncertainty that people have at dealing with a foreigner. And oftentimes, like if you look on my videos, my stop and stare videos, where I'm just filming people staring, well, people say, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? Of course, these are the millions of ways that people can respond given their life condition at that point in time. Sometimes I want to observe. Sometimes I want to engage people. Sometimes I don't want to be bothered. And sometimes it feels very invasive that people encroach upon your space, literally. And the way that people do it, I get into it in those other videos, but it's physically quite encroaching. And so this is how people deal with difference here. And the uncertainty of someone who's different, I don't know how to place them. I don't even know what language to speak, what words could possibly come out of their mouth. I mean, that's how serious it is. That's what I have to deal with. And I say, do I have compassion for these people? Do I have empathy for these people? Do I ridicule them or chide them, which is often what people do when they go on the offensive? They want to displace and demean the other in order just to solidify their position, because they don't know where that person is coming from. And that's a typical way that people deal with difference. And having witnessed this, and I don't want to say been a target of this or a victim of this, I'm saying having witnessed how people other and need to sort of demonize in order to just get what they want, to be where they need to be. I don't want to be that person. But I also have sympathy for people who do that because I've been there. Yeah. And meeting this kind of opposition, just to who you are or what your agenda is, can apply to different aspects of your life. So when you need to get something that you want, you need to sympathize with that person's position and not just confront and challenge them and try to push and impress. That's the bullish way. That's so old school. Yeah.